Glass Onion is the sequel to 2019's hit murder mystery Knives Out, written and directed again by Rian Johnson, the director of everyone's favorite Star Wars movie. This story brings us back to the character of Benoit Blanc, who is quite possibly the greatest detective in the world, played by Daniel Craig. And this story brings him to a remote island off the coast of Greece where a billionaire has invited his best friends for a weekend away from the world. Fittingly, I'm wearing my Greece hoodie for this review. Now, you'd be forgiven if you didn't know this was out already because it kind of is, but it also kind of isn't. Netflix tried something new with this movie and released it in like 600 theaters over Thanksgiving weekend only. You can still find it in some theaters across the country, but for the most part, they took it out right after the weekend was over and won't have it anywhere until it hits Netflix on December 23rd. I got to see this movie over Thanksgiving weekend, and I had some pretty high hopes going in. I loved the first Knives Out. I didn't love it coming out of my initial viewing, but I think I've rewatched that movie like 10 times over the past 3 years since it came out. It's a beautifully shot movie, has great performances from the entire cast, especially Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, and Daniel Craig, of course. I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out. I had high hopes, but I questioned how they were going to one-up from what they did last time. I mean, in the first Knives Out, they gave us a different twist on how to tell a murder mystery story where we basically know who done it, or kinda we know who done it about midway through the movie. So they couldn't come out with this one and give us some conventional murder mystery flick. But I can sit here and happily say that it exceeded every expectation that I had going in. This movie is truly exceptional. It does what the first Knives Out did and takes it one step further. It tells a murder mystery in a totally different way and keeps you guessing throughout the whole movie. There's a time jump here that would have been easy to screw up, but it only elevated the movie and some of the characters. Rian Johnson proves again that this is his calling. I don't know how the guy comes up with this stuff, but what I do know is that I want more. Now, the setting of the last movie is at this remote Victorian home. To me, the setting and how the film is shot just makes me feel cozy in Knives Out. It feels like the sort of movie that's perfect for a rainy day outside. You know, you sit down on the couch with a blanket in tow, have a warm cup of coffee, and you need to just throw something on that makes you feel cozy. But Glass Onion goes the exact opposite direction of that. Like I said, this takes place off the coast of Greece, so instead of the film leading into the fall or early winter type of weather that it went with in Knives Out, instead here we go in the direction of a warm summer vacation feel. Completely and entirely different than Knives Out, and something that I think was a wise change. What Rian Johnson has done is basically make a film that maintains the DNA of the first, but feels like it could completely stand on its own. It doesn't lean on the first one really in any way. They don't even address the events of the last film aside from maybe one throwaway line from Blanc at the very beginning. This is also a really funny movie. There were multiple times, several times in fact, in the audience where this packed room of people just started bursting out laughing. But it had just the right amount of humor that it was consistent with the tone of the first Knives Out. They didn't go super comedy with this one. There was comedy in it, but in my opinion, it was consistent with the first Knives Out. And the cast of characters that they introduce in this film is just as great as the first one. I actually found this one to work even better than the first because they had fewer people they were focusing in on. I think that there were just 7 or 8 people in the actual murder mystery portion of the movie. This allowed us, in my opinion, to get to know each of the people more in depth and give everyone their moment to shine. In Knives Out, it felt like some characters really didn't have to be there, but in this one, you see how each one of the people on the island fulfill a purpose for the film as a whole. And then I also want to say that it felt plausible that any of these people could have performed the murder that happens in this movie. Everyone's sort of motive is truly believable here. And that just generally helped with the tension of this movie. I feel like in the first Knives Out, there were some characters that they gave a motive to, but at the end of the day, I really didn't believe it would be anyone other than who ends up being the murderer at the end. And this one, while predictable at times, left me guessing on certain portions of the murder on who exactly did what. Like, this person seems to be involved, but I don't know how they fit into this puzzle piece. It really was fitting for a great film, and it kept me guessing the entire way. There are a couple of standouts from the new cast here. Kate Hudson's character sticks in my mind anytime I think of this movie. She's sort of like Toni Collette's character from the first one. I thought that she was just really funny, and Kate Hudson completely owned the role. Janelle Monáe is also fantastic in the role that she plays. I can't go in depth about her character without spoiling a substantial part of this movie, so I'll just leave it at that. Edward Norton is also very good as this eccentric billionaire who thinks that they're way smarter than they actually are. When you watch this movie, he's bound to remind you of someone you've seen in the news before. It seems like guys similar to Edward Norton's character in this movie are a dime a dozen in the real world today. It's fun seeing Edward Norton in this role and really just loosen up as an actor and be in something fun like this. Daniel Craig once again is excellent as Benoit Blanc. You get a sense that this guy almost always has a feel for what's going on. In this film, we also see Blanc do more sleuthing and detective work than we did in the first one, and I thought that that was a fantastic addition to this iteration of the franchise. It's easy to feel like a character like Blanc is just at arm's reach, so it was cool to see him do some investigative work from his perspective. The mystery here is excellent as well. Some of it, like the first, is predictable, but this movie does something about midway through, whenever I thought I had it all figured out, that I thought was a swing for the fences and excellently executed. This movie really throws a Hail Mary in certain parts, but it worked for me. I can't find a negative thing to say about this movie. Rian Johnson made a sequel that's better than the first in my opinion, and that was a high bar for me to pass up. I love Knives Out, but I think Glass Onion is even better. Fantastic script, another great cast of characters. Daniel Craig is wonderful once again. It has a good mystery and once again uses its cinematography to elevate the, temperature of the movie. Glass Onion is a 10 out of 10 in my books. Whenever this pops up on Netflix on December 23rd, make sure you watch it. I may just be a sucker for murder mystery movies, but I am in love with this franchise. I can't wait to get another one. I know that they have a third one in development right now that will also be going to Netflix. Hopefully that gets a longer theater run than Glass Onion, but hey, for now, I'll take what they gave me. Glass Onion, 10 out of 10. That'll do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.